Hello, Black America.
And good afternoon, family. I'm Curtis Cheatham Jr., and welcome to This Week in Black America. Here's a rundown of the past week's highlights, and it's getting wild out west as the 47th president dispatches National Guardsmen and Marines to LA under the guise of law and order and over the objections of the governor. Now the courts have intervened and will unravel what's happening out there. Kilmar Abrego Garcia is back on U.S. soil. However, is the administration playing in our faces? We'll explore that more closely, and we'll go into that a little bit. There are signs that the lovers' quarrel in D.C. has abated. The star-crossed lovers are regretful about some of the things that they said to each other, and we're going to get into that a little bit in This Week in Black America. And also, the loss of a musical icon this week. More unrest in the Middle East, some social unrest domestically, and more. All that and more this week on This Week in Black America. And of course, as always, I got my brother with me. Brother Deshaun is here. How are you today, brother?
I feel great, brother. Good to see you. Always a pleasure to be on this panel with you. And welcome to everybody who's checking in. If this is your first time, we invite you to hit the like button. We catch up on everything that happened this week. If you're busy, you work a lot, or you just don't have the time to stay abreast to the things that are happening, this is where we catch up on those things. Every Friday, 12 noon Eastern time. We usually are here until about 1:30. If the stories get interesting and the dialogue gets real good, we might go to about 2 p.m. So if you want to hang around with us for a while, please hit the like button. It boosts the algorithm. It lets everyone know that this show is important. And we look forward to just seeing you guys and dialoguing with you over the next couple minutes. So as always, we have a lot to discuss. We are live on the Hello Black America YouTube channel, as well as the Brother Deshaun Facebook channel. And I'll let my man Curtis Cheatham kick us off. Let's go.
Absolutely. You know, it's always interesting for us because we do this recap show on Fridays, and you know, it seems like in years past, Fridays would like the news cycle would kind of slow down going into the weekend. You know, they were real careful. They didn't want stuff to go into the weekend and kind of get lost. It seems, however, this administration is not subscribing to that school of thought at all, because it seems like on Friday evenings there's just a barrage of stuff that, you know, things just happening. And so last Friday after we got off,
as soon as we end the show, it's like
I know, it's like I gotta admit, you know, after we finish the show, I want to just relax and not really even look at any news for a while. But so far I haven't been able to do that because either I'm getting a call or I get an alert on my phone or something, and there's always something happening. And last week after the show, I was getting alerts on my phone. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, he's on his way back to the U.S. And, you know, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, for those of you who may not recall, was the gentleman from Maryland who the administration initially said they had deported in error. And but they also said that they weren't going to basically put any effort into bringing him back. They said, hey, he's gone. He's gone. The courts intervened, said, hey, you have to actually bring him back. Use all, what was the term they used? Deliberate speed? No, that's something else. They used the term to facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia. And they were just like, no, not so much. They basically ignored that. Now, last Friday, what we see is he's on a plane back. All of a sudden, whatever the obstacles were that were keeping him in San Salvador, El Salvador, all of a sudden those were all cleared away, and he's on his way back. But then we find out that he's on his way back because the administration had the Department of Justice basically, pun intended, trump up some charges on the man about trafficking people and things like that. And now they wanted to bring him back basically so that they can charge him for these crimes that that just kind of sort of came up. He wasn't accused of any of these crimes when they shipped him out. But now when once the heat came on and they were getting pressure from a lot of different quarters, all of a sudden he's on a plane back, he's here, but now he's facing charges. All right, that's enough background, brother. Deshaun, I'd like to hear you chime in on this because
you can't make this up.
You cannot.
You know, and no, you know what? No pun intended or no pun intended. What I just said, you can't make this up.
No.
You have everyone saw what happened over the last 60 days with Kilmar Abrego Garcia.
Right.
This happened on the world stage. You deport him in, you grab them up. You don't have anything legitimate. You say he's an MS-13 gang member. You know, Photoshop MS-13 over his tattoos, made it mean MS-13. And, okay, he's gone. The senator, I believe one of the senators go out there to find out what's going on with him. And the president of El Salvador, you guys remember that maybe a month and a half ago, 2 months, the president of El Salvador comes and sits with President Trump and basically says, hey, whatever you want me to do, let's go. Trump tells him, I'm gonna need you to build 5 more of these facilities so we can start sending some of the homegrowns over there too. The homegrowns are coming next.
That's it.
And, it looked like for a long period of time that, Kilmar Abrego Garcia was a hopeless fight. Like, right. He's going to be there. Nobody's coming to get him. Felt forgotten about for a while. And then they said we had to go get him. The states did, the Supreme Court.
Yep.
Supreme Court says we
unanimously.
It unanimously voted 9-0. And then all of a sudden, en route to getting him back to be accounted, we have charges against him now, criminal charges that he's coming back to face.
Yeah.
At what stage does this start to concern people?
I think we're past that stage.
I have been saying for a very long period of time, we're waiting way too long to really take any decisive action. I get all of this stuff that people are trying to do, but this is a major issue. We are seeing senators being handcuffed. We are seeing people being escorted out of public hearings in handcuffs for exercising their freedom of speech, their rights, rights under the country. We're seeing people not being asked to leave nicely. Good to see you, Spiker Han, one of our co-hosts checking in. We are seeing these people not being escorted nicely, but aggressively put in cuffs. It's not surprising, though. This with Kilmar Abrego Garcia coming back to face charges that he did not leave, he wasn't pending. We arrested him. You didn't have time to look at what was on his jacket when you arrested him. You had him detained for enough time where you could have said, hey, this guy actually has a warrant in such and such state. All of a sudden, we have criminal charges 2 months later.
Yeah, it's giving 3-card Molly. It's giving shell game. It's like it's giving they're playing in our faces because like you just said, this guy had nothing on his sheet before you shipped him off, and had they had something, they would have spoken up then. They wouldn't have gone through all this rigmarole that they've been going through trying to justify their bad behavior. They would have said something right from the beginning if they had known, or if there was any inkling that there was any criminal past or any criminal background, because we've been hearing it about the domestic violence stuff that's in his background. There's been some indication that there were some domestic disputes between he and his spouse. you know,
So they knew
okay,
about that.
we knew about that, but and they brought that to the fore as much as they could. But here we are now, and they decide that there's some human smuggling charges in Tennessee, and apparently it goes back to a time where he was stopped, and apparently they said he had some migrants in the car with him or something like that.
Now we already know, Curtis, as Black Americans, we are absolutely familiar with cops planting stuff on us.
What? That never happens.
Dave Chappelle had a joke. He came into the person's house. Hey, guy calls the cops. They walk in. Cops hit the black guy that owns the house, and said, "Hey, Johnson, look, this black guy broke into these people's house and put all of these pictures of his family up." And then they just sprinkle a little cocaine on them.
Oh my goodness!
And, this is notorious. It's amazing because what we're seeing is a system that is operating in a way that, for years, when we were saying, "Hey, there's systems in place, guys,"
right.
There's systems in place. And you can't go above the system. No matter how hardworking you are, you're an upstanding citizen, all well and good. You can't go above the system. And now we have hardworking people who are realizing that the system has the power. And if the system decides that it's going to compromise you, or it's going to marginalize you, or you're not included, you're not really who we want in the system, or we don't want you anywhere above here in the system. You're not going above here. And so, with that said, smuggling charges, all of a sudden he's smuggling he's smuggling in Tennessee. What it specifically says is the Maryland resident who was illegally deported to El Salvador in March was indicted by federal on 2 counts: conspiracy to unlawfully transport illegal aliens for financial gains, and the unlawful transportation of illegal aliens for financial gains. Major things. It's a major thing. You didn't know about this stuff. So again, we already know where this is going. Unfortunately, I don't see this ending well for Kilmar Abrego Garcia at all. I think this is an exercise in futility, fighting against this. He needs to just realize, okay, I'm not coming back to America, and now that I'm coming back. But let me ask you a question, Curtis.
Mm-hmm.
Can he go home and just live a life? Like, why is he in? Okay, well, let's say now he's facing charges.
Now he's facing charges.
So he couldn't have at some point, could he have just said, all right, let me loose. I'm just going to go and live my life in, outside of America. Not put me in a prison.
His family's here. His family, and if I recall correctly, his wife is a citizen, is here legally, and why would he go back to where I think he's from, San Salvador or El Salvador? So, his life is here. So I guess we do see, and we'll probably get into it a little bit later, we do see that there are people who are basically self-deporting because they don't want to deal with the nonsense. But the question becomes, where is he going to go if his whole life is built here, his family's built here, and he's here under legal protections? Then where would he go? Why would he need to leave, I guess, becomes the question.
My only thing is, can he get home without now being in prison? It seems at this point they're trying to not just deport him, but they're trying to put him in prison.
Well, they're putting everybody in prison. These people aren't guilty of anything other than being here. In a lot of cases, they're just guilty of being here beyond their visas, which is a misdemeanor at best in our country. But what we see is all this performative stuff going on to make this look like it's some sort of influx of immigrants who are doing all types of despicable things. It's just performative, and to try and dramatize what's going on to justify the foolishness that this administration is doing. And you know, you got to be clear enough to see that it's not all of this is just kind of a shell game. You know, if you're not familiar with 3-card Molly, it's like it's a game of distraction. I remember losing a lot of money as a college kid in New York City, thinking I could follow the queen. 3-card Molly.
I lost mine in Daytona Beach, Florida. Learned my lesson, Daytona Beach. I came down on a Friday. I was only 18. My cousins brought me down. I don't even know. And listen, my cousin, you didn't protect me, by the way. You didn't protect me. Because they told me afterwards, hey, you know, everybody's telling me afterwards, no, D, it's rigged.
Why did you tell me that before?
Before I put my $75 up, and then I went in double for nothing.
Listen.
Lost $150 in 5 minutes.
Listen, my story is very similar.
Until you haven't felt pain until you come in for a weekend vacation. You got about $300 on you, and you lose 150 of it in 10 minutes. It's only Friday. We just went, all right. That's still a very open wound when you mention.
I can. But listen, mine is very similar. I had to beg a guy on the streets of New York to give me $10 so I could get a bus back to Pennsylvania. You know, after he had took all my money, he felt so bad for me. He gave me $10 back so I could get a bus trip back to Allentown. But anyway.
Okay. Yes. All right, good point. But yes, to your point, yes, game of distraction. This is and a lot of things, you know, to continue moving forward. You can queue up what's next, because a lot of things are taking place while these huge distractions are happening, while a lot of things are taking place. I also want to read a couple of things. One of our co-hosts, Spiker Hahn, is talking.
Yeah.
He said the riots in Compton and the riots in Long Beach, riots in LA, because them no really want to see black people start to loot. Or they want to. Are you saying they want to see black people start to loot and lock it down?
This is their poem, I think. This was Spiker Hahn's poem.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Them riot in Compton and them riot in Long Beach, them riot in LA, because them no really want to see N-words start to loot and police start to shoot. Lock us down at 7 o'clock, barricade us like
Beirut. Like Beirut.
Beirut.
Ooh, I need anger management. Cops are getting cocky again.
They are. They are. If they ever lost that cockiness.
If they ever lost that cockiness. But yeah, is military forces not sick of and tired of being abused for their services? All can't be MAGA. Well, let's talk about that a little later. I'm gonna put a star on that comment, Spiker Hahn, because I would like to discuss later when we it's getting real for the military. And we talked about this maybe 2-3 months ago.
Right.
We said at some point there's going to be two groups of people that had to make a decision. First was really the law enforcement after the January 6th pardons.
Right.
You know, because if you were a law enforcement officer, you had some people standing up. We'll come back to that. But I put a star on that. That's a good talk that we want to have later. But let's, Curtis, what's next on the agenda? Because we got a lot.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think, and this is another one that kind of fits under that same Kilmar Abrego Garcia umbrella, is that it kind of happened under the dark of night. You know, last Friday night, again, the Supreme Court. So the Trump administration and DOGE, Elon Musk, had been seeking access to our Social Security data. And they had been blocked by a federal judge, I believe, in Maryland, if I'm not mistaken. And so now the Supreme Court came to the rescue here recently, last week, and basically gave DOGE the access to our Social Security data. Now, data, of course, and we've discussed this before, data is the new valuable resource now, you know, because everything works electronically, right? And so to be able to have access to your data and manipulate information and find out information, anybody, that's the holy grail now of information. And now DOGE, no longer under the guidance of Muskrat, but I don't know who's running. That's an interesting question. Is DOGE still running? Does it have now a new leader under? That's a question I need to get into a little bit more.
When he ended that on that way out in the Oval Office, he said DOGE was going to continue to run, and I'm sure Elon has the that's a
I'm sure
Zoom
he's still got his fingers on the scales there.
I can't be in the office, but hey, meet me on Zoom 3 times a week.
Right. Well, apparently 3 Supreme Court justices dissented, but the other 6, of course, I guess it would have been all 6, said it was okay that DOGE could get access to this personal information. What could go wrong with that is my question. I mean, I guess if you're doing a government efficiency, you want to have information. You want to have access to the information in order to do a thorough job. The problem for me, though, is that this administration has not shown itself trustworthy of anything, frankly. You know, I wouldn't trust this administration as dog catchers. I wouldn't. I'd be leery about it because they haven't shown themselves to be. You know, if you put your trust in somebody, they have to be worthy of that, right? If somebody burns you once, you're not going back to them again, are you? I mean,
fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on
me. Right? And so, I don't know. I lack trust in this administration, starting from the fact that the head of the administration is a 34-time convicted felon. So, I mean, that's just a fact. Don't get mad at me. That's not a partisan statement. That's just a fact. And so it makes it hard, in my mind, to trust somebody who's already been adjudicated a felon, who's already been adjudicated as a sexual offender, and now we put them in control of everything under the guise of law and order. Doesn't make sense to me. Seems incongruent. But anyway.
Well, I think when people hear certain things, I'm glad you point out absolute fact. You know, but people will also say that there's an agenda, and but at the end of the day, even when you would hear about the illegal tariffs, you would hear about what was happening with Canada and Mexico. And what always stood out for me was the fact that when you can find footage right now of President Trump in 2017, I believe, saying we are inking a historic deal between Canada and Mexico. And this is a long-term partnership. Like they're locked arms like this, almost about to, go off skipping. That's it. Like they were going off about to skip into the sunset together, Mexico, Canada, and the US. And then he broke that agreement. So it's like, hey, we got a horrible agreement, but you negotiate. Not only did you negotiate it, you signed it, and it was your deal.
It was your deal.
You're breaking your own deal before even the term. So when we discuss
the book coming out, The Art of Deal Breaking, maybe he's pushing his next edition, The Art of Deal Breaking. I'm sorry.
That's the next book. That's the next book. The Art of Deal Breaking.
Listen, he's grifting everything, so he's selling whatever he can get.
The Art of Deal Breaking is classic. Deal
Breaking is going to be part 2 of this book.
So, when we look at the trust, like you said, is the administration trustworthy? Do I want these people to have my personal information? No, it seems like everything's for sale. It seems like everything's for sale. Ron T, good to see you checking in. Everything is for sale. We're being monetized like on a ridiculous level. I just looked and Netflix is $24 right now. I said, what? I looked at my wife. I said, when did Netflix? It was $4.99. Now I realize you crept it up on us. You turned up the heat, but this is how it's happening. Yep. We gave these people a little bit, and next thing you know, 10 years later, they are monetizing the heck out of us. Like, and not for Not because they have to survive.
Right.
Because they absolutely are already making billions upon billions in profits. They're doing it because they can. They're doing it because no one's saying anything. And until we do a boycott, they don't feel it. So, when I look at business people like this, because the world operates on business, I'm not against business. We're starting a business, but when we look at these super greedy capitalists who are not lowering prices, who are not saying, like the Arizona iced tea guy,
Right.
who saw that? The 99-cent can. Good to see you. 99-cent can.
Still.
You know what I'm saying? He's clearly a businessman with morals. They said, hey, your can has been 99 cents for 25, 30 years. Why don't you raise the prices? He said, we don't have to.
We still make money.
We're still making money. He sees the climate. Now, if he was living in a super rich country, everybody in the country rich, wearing gold, maybe he would raise the price. But I don't trust these people to have my information and to see that they granted DOGE access to the Social Security data. I mean, one of our co-hosts, Benita, she hasn't checked in yet today, but she said, by the way, for those of you who are new to the studio audience, we call you our co-host. So without your dialogue, it doesn't make the show everything it can be. So, when you hear us refer to, Spike Ahan, Get Black With Me, Ron T checking in, these are, you guys are our co-hosts, so feel free to dialogue. But she said the access to our information was the most important. That was the most important.
Right.
That was the goal for DOGE. It wasn't efficiency. It was to get the information. And I think we're going to see this play out over the next couple months as we have these elections and seeing if this data that they got over the last 4 months is actually going to be used for something a lot more nefarious,
right,
than what all of us could have thought. So no, I don't like this one bit.
Listen, this administration is, you know what? In fact, I want to go back to the Kilmer Abrego thing for a moment, because story 6, if you want to pull up a link, was so Trump is, comes into the playing in our face again. So we've got this, we just talked about the Diego Garcia thing, when him coming back. Then, like later in the week, there was a quote of Trump saying that it wasn't his decision. So on one hand, we've got basically reports that everything, no matter how big, needs to run through Trump. He wants to have his fingers on everything. Yet, on the other hand, we've got him making statements, oh, well, Abrego Garcia, I had nothing to do with it. It did, that wasn't my decision. Of course it was your decision. Your fingerprints are on everything that's gone on in this, and he's just trying to figure out a way to kind of distance himself from it. So when the stuff hits the fan, and it will, as we've seen over and over again with pretty much everything that he's done, the courts are intervening, or somebody is intervening and saying that this isn't right, or the people are protesting and putting so much pressure on the administration that they have to kind of take a step back. But the bottom line is that, you can't have it both ways. And I've used this terminology, pale-face speak with forked tongue, to quote our Native American brothers and sisters. And you can't be this authoritarian leader that basically wants to be a step away from a dictator, yet at the same time, you want to distance yourself from the cruelty and the immorality that is going on within your administration. You can't have it both ways. Bondi is facing disbarment. There is, there have been some ethical charges, I think, brought against Pam Bondi, the head of the Justice Department now, because of the stuff that being a lawyer was always like this high level ethical field. You know, you have to go through these. You have to go through this ethics board to get into the bar and things like that. And now we seem to see that wherever the bag is, you know, we got lawyers that are willing to basically say whatever based on who's pulling the strings. So
and that's a big thing because ethics and law are different. That's why when some people who may have a real estate license,
right,
there are things that you can do that aren't breaking the law, but they are unethical.
Right.
And that's why you had to take ethics training. And I'm sure, like you said, we know rather that attorneys are held to a high degree of ethics. And so I didn't see the story. Get Black with me said they are trumping up charges. That's exactly the term that Curtis used. Because before you jumped on, we spoke about the Kilmar Abrego Garcia smuggling charges. That was the story at the top of the show. But no, I didn't see that they were talking about disbarring Bondi. And so if that happens, I mean, does she still get to hold her position? Because now
the president had to fill out a waiver for the head of the Justice Department. Remember, he fired all the black general and the female general, and then the person that he put up to replace them didn't meet the requirements of the job, so he had to get a waiver from the president in order to fill the job. So you never know. The president may have to do another waiver for the people that don't meet the standard. And when you talk about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which there seems to be such a backlash against these days because we don't want people who aren't qualified for the job, and yet we have these folks who lack melanation who are put into these positions and then have to get a waiver because they lack the qualifications, the basic qualifications that are required for the job that they're holding.
And what's amazing, before we move on, is these people don't realize that most of the people who align with President Trump, it ends bad for you. Like look at Giuliani. Giuliani, and look, he can't even get a phone call. You put your life on the line, you lose it all. We got businesses, they're pulling, President Trump's a former real estate developer. There are hundreds of thousands of real estate developers all around our country. They are having their workforce pulled off of the job sites. He's killing them. Like, you bid out a contract for $100,000. Your subs, half of your subs are undocumented.
Exactly.
So when your framer and your roofer gets pulled off the job, you can't go and finish the job. Yep. Because you got to go and find another framer and another roofer. And if they're on the books, they're going to charge more than you bid out the job for. So now you got to either take less money or you got to go back to the person and raise the price. This is like, when are these people going to start seeing that this guy is ruining us? Target, us aligning with you instead of being independent business owners. Like, just be independent business owners. What is the reason that you guys are choosing to align your businesses with the administration? Like, why is your business aligned with the state? It's ridiculous. And it's very costly. Some of you are not going to make it.
And the administration doesn't seem to care about that. And I mean, it's frightening to see what's going on. And you start to see all these news stories, right? The people that voted for Trump, that now they're like, oh, well, I didn't know he was going to he did exactly what he said he was going to do. Are you kidding me?
Did you see the farmers?
Exactly what he said he was going to do. And everybody's like, oh, he's just talking.
The farmer on the tractor, the newswoman is out there. He's like, I lost 40% of my revenue.
It's like this guy was telling you straight out what he was gonna do, and he sounded a little crazy, but you were like, nah, he's just talking.
And Curtis, this is my only point. My only point about this is, why are you aligning your business with the state? Like, I thought Republicans were big on less government interference with our businesses. Like, that was the whole story of being a traditional Republican. We don't want the state in our business. Like, less regulation, less everything. But no, we're aligning ourselves with the way the state wants us to think, and it's ruining our businesses.
And yeah. Now, when you start talking about the state versus the Fed, we can move out west and see how that's playing out in LA. This is just it's just a crazy, crazy time. It's so depressing. I promise you, I wouldn't be paying attention to any of this if we weren't doing this show. I promise you I wouldn't be. But we can't help but see what's going on around us. And we've got our neighbors to the west. Again, LA is the target, LA County specifically, where the 47th president has now, I think it was 2,000 National Guards people were deployed initially to the LA area, along with 700 Marines. And under the guise of law and order, again, I find that hilarious that this president even can actually say the words law and order together and not burst out in laughter, because he is factual a 34-time convicted felon. So anytime he says law and order, that's what I feel deep within my soul. But so anyway, he dispatches the National Guard and the Marines over the objection of the governor, who normally has the jurisdiction over the National Guard. There are certain provisions in place that will allow the president to federalize the National Guard, but the president didn't take any of those precautions or any of those reasons. None of them were justified. Now, the courts have now said that this was illegal and that he must return the National Guard back to the jurisdiction of the governor. But going back to the first story we talked about, he doesn't always listen to the courts when it doesn't serve him. So we still have to see how this is going to play out. And then, of course, really sad, we saw a sitting senator from the state of California not only being pushed around by the FBI, by federal authorities, but forcibly forced to the ground, handcuffed, and taken out, all because he interrupted a meeting to ask who was it, Pam Bondi, I think. No, it was Kristi Noem, I'm sorry, head of Homeland Security, to ask Kristi Noem a question. And federal agents manhandled a sitting senator, pushed him out of the room for wanting to ask a question. What are your thoughts on that? Before I get on a rant here.
We're showing the video right now. You guys can see it up on the screen here. Senator Padilla removed from the Department of Homeland Security address. I mean, we've never seen anything like this before. I don't even know what words we could use to describe this. This is a tyrannical government.
Kristi Noem claimed, and this goes back to the playing in our face again, claimed she didn't know who the senator was. And clearly, if you watch this video and listen to the audio, The senator is identifying himself as they are pushing him out. I am Senator Alex Padilla from the state of California, the state where you are sitting in right now, the state where you are.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it. Let's hear it. Well, that sounds pretty clear. We didn't have to listen
It
more.
was clear, right? There was no accent. There was no muffling of his nothing. He was clear and say, "I'm Senator Alex Padilla." And Kristi Noem, of course, claimed that she didn't know who he was, although he clearly, as you point out, he was very articulate and clearly stating his name and his position, and that should have given her, "Oh, you're a senator." If she didn't know, which is a lie, she knows who he was. If she didn't know who he was, him identifying himself should have stopped all of this foolishness. But why are federal agents choosing to manhandle a senator because he wanted to say something or he interrupted a meeting? When did that become an arrestable offense?
When Kashi took over. What's the guy who's over the FBI?
Kash Patel.
Kash Patel.
Yeah.
Because this guy right here, look at this guy right here. I'm watching this video, Curtis. Look at this guy. There's no way this guy right here has been a federal agent for more than 6 months.
Absolutely.
Look at him. This is a different FBI. This is not our FBI of old. Now, the FBI is guilty of many things against Black people, but this is a different FBI. I don't care what anybody says. These guys look different. They have a certain look to them that I've never seen. You would think that the Federal Bureau of Investigation would not be arresting a senator. You would think if this was kind of the remnants of the old system, they would be standing up and saying, wait, we're used to going to get big criminals. Like, we're used to going to get criminals that are doing huge crimes against our country. Like, why are we arresting a senator right now, that a public official voted in by the people on some woman's charge who just got here a couple months ago? What? Like, who are you? Like, these people gotta be new people. I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I don't know if they're new or what, but I think clearly that 47 is trying to get people to declare their allegiance. That's what I think this National Guard stuff was all about. The Marines, these are people that live in some cases in those communities, or at least in that state. So you live in a state where you're being called out to police the people that are your neighbors, essentially. And we've talked about this for months now. These are all kind of opening salvos towards what could potentially end up being some sort of civil war again, because you've got to choose a side. This isn't about R or D at this point. This is about right and wrong. And what we're seeing is the wrongful treatment of American citizens. It's wrongful based on everything that this country has professed in its documents, its constitution, etc. So this Bill of Rights and all those things are being thrown out. 250 years of progress is really being thrown out in a few months. And I don't know why people are so many people are okay with it. And I don't think I get it. I don't think I understand how people are so hateful, how people are so they're not compassionate for their fellow man in a nation that claims, quote unquote, Christianity. We can talk about that some other time, but we claim to be a Christian nation, which isn't true. It isn't even something that this nation has ever put forth as its doctrine, but the people seem to always try and claim that we're a Christian nation. and yet I don't see anything that resembles Christianity. A lot from our leaders, especially.
And you know that we've always been a nation that we seem to be relatively peace seeking. Outside, we were, you know, the you know, we're orchestrating war all around the world. So, but inside, it was different. And I think it's, you know, to your point, Curtis, is it about the optics? Maybe there are not as many people who are actually for this mess as they're trying to make us think there is, because these guys seem to be, some of you may have seen the videos of LA. LA's huge. Even me and my dad was talking and we said, you notice the National Guard standing shoulder to shoulder.
Right.
Why? Because there's not a large area to contain.
Mm-hmm.
They're making it look like this is, oh, LA is on fire.
It's a very small.
It's a very small part. It's a few blocks where these protests are taking place. Mm-hmm. And when you think about the three law enforcement, you have the LA City Police, you have the Highway Traffic Patrol, you have the sheriff, county sheriff. Three levels of police that LA has if things were to get out of control before they would need to call in the National Guard. So the calling in of the National Guard seems to be, give me a reason. First reason that, come on, give me a reason. Some of us know. This was like you were looking for a reason to call in the National Guard, because you know that you can get those snapshots to make it look like a bigger issue so that your base, which is all you care about, continues to move in lockstep. And because it's not a huge problem in California. This is not a huge problem in LA. It's not. And it's certainly getting buried.
They have to stoke this fear in order to justify the things that they want to do on the back end. And that's what it's all about.
It's the 3-card Molly. This is continued. it's what can we make you think this is,
right,
that it ain't. So while things are happening behind the scenes with the currency changing, with the hundreds of billions of dollars exchanging hands between our president, not in US dollars, like, focus on these things over here. While you guys are, let's post these pictures of us in LA, these couple blocks, so that we can start to deploy the military, so that when we're deploying the military in every city, especially democratic cities, you guys don't ask any questions, because you saw how LA was out of control. We had to send the military in over there. Next thing you know, we got military in 6 cities, and then here comes martial law.
Right. Well, did you see I thought this was interesting. Did you see the pallets of cinder blocks that got delivered right outside the area where they were? It was so reminiscent of the 2020 Black Lives Matter protest, where all of a sudden you start to see these pallets of bricks show up in Black community. And, you know, if things is popping off and you just happen to see a brick, you know, laying around, maybe it gets thrown at something in the emotional fervor of a protest or something like that. But it's just so ironic and convenient that these bricks, where no construction site exists, these bricks just gotta show up. Because they want you to throw the bricks. They want you to listen. They probably have lighters somewhere so you can light a fire. You know, listen, here's some wood, here's a lighter. All you got to do is light this on fire, throw it in that dumpster right there. See it? Yeah, let's do that. And, you know, it's just kind of leading people to the water, hoping that they're going to drink. I don't know. It just,
convenient.
Most people don't see this.
Stack of bricks.
Wow, look at this. How convenient. Absolutely. There's a stack of bricks here just when I thought I might want to throw something.
And Get Black Whitney just said that he's such a liar. He'd use pictures from the LA riots.
I was wondering if that was a statement of fact, because we've seen him use pictures from the Congo to justify his refugee program in South Africa. So it's certainly not something that we would put past this administration to use some pictures that aren't necessarily of what we're talking about, but it's, close enough. Anyway.
For those who don't know, because we always like to state fact here, 3 weeks ago, when the president of South Africa was meeting with President Trump in the Oval Office, he showed pictures of white people being killed, white dead bodies. And these people, he said, look, they're killing farmers. They're killing them. Mm-hmm. And turns out those images were from the Democratic Republic of Congo, not South Africa. So for those of you,
let the facts get in the way of a good story, Deshaun. Do not let the facts get in the way of a good story.
Because I could guarantee most people didn't see. Listen, the correction is never as popular as the viral video. So
right next to the correction is going to be next to the ad section.
That's right. The wrong information gets 8 million views, but when hey guys, I need to correct that. All right, I put it out there. 800 views, and it's like, well, I did it. Well, no one saw it. So we just want you to know, like, as a statement of fact, this administration has, be it seems like intentionally, because no one's going to jail for this, put images out that are not accurate images. So
not going to jail or even being fired. No one's, and this is coming from the guy who made his bones on you're fired, and he hasn't fired anybody. Now I wonder if that's because he can't get anybody else to work for him these days after exhausting a whole bunch of people in the first Trump administration, and now in the second one, he's finding people that are maybe a little below the bar of excellence. I don't know, but they're loyal to him, and I guess that's really the only thing that really matters to this administration. Got a bit of breaking news here. I want to just go. It's not on our sheet at all, but here in New Jersey, 4 detainees from the immigration detention center in Newark that has been in the news so much lately. 4 detainees have escaped from an immigration detention center in Newark. That just came out about 10 minutes ago, since we've been on the air. Don't have a lot of details, but apparently there was some unrest at the facility, inside the facility, Delaney Hall, where, of course, Mayor Baraka was arrested a couple weeks ago, and State and Representative LaMonica McIver, she's also was arrested and charged. So, just another more to be unfolded here. But yeah, apparently 4 people have escaped from that detention center. Now, we'll see how that plays out. Took them a while to find those people that escaped in New Orleans. I don't even think they got all 10 of them back yet. So let's see how quickly they scoop up these 4 people that have apparently escaped from the New Jersey Immigration Detention Center in Newark.
Good to see you, Anita Bracey, checking in. Yeah, just pulled this video up, Curtis, and see if we can get a little info on this.
Mm-hmm.
And then a dispute broke out after bed sheets. The New York Post reports that a manhunt is underway for 4 people who are still on the run after the detainees created a rope out of bed sheets, which they used to descend from their 3rd floor dorm. Earlier in the day, around 3 dozen people held a demonstration outside Delaney Hall protesting allegations of poor conditions inside the facility. Amy Torres, executive director with the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice, said that a dispute broke out after meals were delivered late.
New Jersey has a nonprofit run rapid response line, 188 dire SOS. And
okay, well, we'll track this.
Yeah, just came out, just happened within the hour. So
where are they going though?
Hey, Listen, they might be going to Smash Burger or something. You know, maybe the food's bad. I don't know. But any place is better than this place, I guess, is what they're figuring. They might be self-deporting. They might be trying to get out of the country.
That's the only the safest thing for them to be doing is running to the border, but there's no border from New Jersey. Like, that's a long run, buddy. Like,
but they're going to the ocean and go swim back wherever they're coming from.
Like, God, where are you going? It'd be different if you're in Texas or something. Oh, man, I'm heading to the border. Because, like we said earlier, I don't want to end up in a prison. I don't want to end up in a concentration camp in another country somewhere that maybe I won't see the light of day for the next couple of years or ever. So I'd rather escape than end up being deported by this administration. But where you going, man? Get that. This is a scary. I would be totally like. Go ahead. I don't know. I'm glad you brought that up. Again, breaking news. We got 4 people that escaped from this ICE facility in, not too far from me. That's Delaney Hall. It's literally 10 minutes from me. But God.
Yeah.
And look, everything looks so violent. You get what I'm saying? Even it's like the things that used to really trouble us are so normal now. Like the interactions, when you see all of it just everything looks violent. It's like we're just becoming a country where violence is becoming normal. And when you have a person who said, hey, maybe we should have one day of violence, and nobody, maybe that had a little something to do with it. Sowing, and maybe we are moving to one day. If it seems like if he had it his way, he'd love the law enforcement to have one big day of violence. So
you said that too. You said that too.
And listen, as we get later in the show, we're gonna bring back a question that we posed 2 weeks ago.
Listen, it's getting a lot more appetizing. I got to.
We'll bring that around for those of you who weren't on the show 2 weeks ago when Curtis was away. We'll bring that back around. But staying on Delaney Hall, Curtis, and rather New Jersey news, why don't you tell the people what's happening concerning an event that took place with our young Black Congresswoman?
Well, yeah, we mentioned her name briefly just a moment ago, U.S. Representative LaMonica McIver. So if you recall, of course, at first it was Mayor Baraka that was arrested and then released. Now, we later found out that, well, this was me and my putting pieces together. When he was released, we were publicly on the show wondering why the charges were being dropped. And then after the show, we realized that they were bringing a lawsuit. The federal government was suing several cities, including the city of Newark. And I surmised that, hey, it probably looked better for them not to have arrested the mayor of the city that they are suing. And probably that played a part in their decision as to why they released Mayor Baraka. But then now, a couple of days after that, we signed them that they actually indict U.S. Representative LaMonica McIver. And we saw the pictures, we saw the film of what happened there, and the administration has kind of tried to tell us, don't believe what your eyes see, but look how violent she was. You spoke clearly about the president and how dangerous his rhetoric was, talking about how violent she was, when no such thing happened according to the film. So anybody can get indicted. You've heard the saying that you can indict a ham sandwich. So if the prosecution wants to indict somebody, and certainly the tenor of the administration now has made it so that these prosecutors probably have an appetite for this sort of thing, they just decided to indict this person. I doubt that she'll be convicted of anything, but they're going through. They're going through with all the motions of making this hard for this U.S. Representative LaMonica McIver. So it's just more of the same. I don't know that anything's going to really come of this, But if it's making her go through the hassle of having to defend herself, it's just they're trying to make chaos. I think that's just my opinion. And you know, that's New Jersey politics for you. Speaking of New Jersey politics, I don't know how much more you want to talk about Miss McIver, but we just had a gubernatorial primary in the state of New Jersey. You know, we still staying tapped in with the local politics, and congratulations to Mikie Sherrill, the Democratic nominee for governor of the state of New Jersey, and Jack Ciattarelli, the Republican nominee, and he's got the full endorsement of the 47th president of the United States. Now, what I want to bring up is why this is important, because what we're seeing, and relate it back to what we're seeing in California and in the state of Texas, which we actually haven't even mentioned yet, but
right.
This is the difference.
We do need to go back. We're not done with LA and Texas. We'll circle back with that. But go ahead, Curtis.
But this is a way to tie this all together, is that if you live in a state like New Jersey, which is mostly a Democratic state usually, but every now and again, I mean, I've lived long enough to see Tom Keene be governor, Christie Todd Whitman, Chris Christie. There may even been one or two other Republican governors in the state of New Jersey. But what I want you to highlight is how it looks so different in a state like California, where you've got a Democratic governor in Gavin Newsom, and then juxtapose that with a state like Texas, where you've got a Republican governor in Governor Abbott. And so the California government officials are actively fighting against the federal government bringing in troops, federal troops, whereas in the state of Texas, we've got an active governor who's proactively deployed 5,000 National Guard troops in anticipation of protests coming up this weekend. So that's why it's important, you know, to stay involved locally with your government, because you want to have somebody standing in the gap. Imagine what it would look like in New Jersey if Jack Ciattarelli becomes the next governor of the state of New Jersey. That would be troubling for me. That would be troubling.
Unapologetically supporting of everything. When they asked him, you know, should anybody interfere with ICE? Should they be arrested? Absolutely. You know, so this is somebody who is literally an extension of President Trump's hand on the state level. And again, like you just said, Curtis, when you look at who's running your state and the fight that they're going to put up, it's going to need you. If you don't have somebody who is actively like with it right now, like yo, because we got a fight on our hands, and that's just to not let anything come through. It's not an everything fight. Right. It's the fact that at this particular point, there are things that are coming from the federal level spilling into the state that are affecting us, and we never had this before. So if you don't have a strong governor, your whole state can change in a minute. And this guy Ciattarelli, he is. Well, matter of fact, to the point, I want to be clear here that there was about a 200,000 vote difference for Mikie Sherrill versus this guy. So again, I got my eye on these voting machines now, because it's everywhere now. I mean, it's not on our show, but you guys can hear that the conspiracy theories are really being legitimized concerning the election fraud. And you know, Rockland County, there are counties that want to demand a recount of the hand ballots because they're seeing discrepancies in how many people say they voted for such and such candidate, but the records show that candidate got no votes or something of that nature. Like there's some clear discrepancies here. So my eye is on, you know, kind of these primaries, and then making sure that when we get to the, you know, general election, these things don't change and magically go a whole nother way.
Yeah. Listen, I wholeheartedly believe that there were some shenanigans that took place in this last election. I really have like I feel like I have a really good pulse, finger on the pulse of America, you know, and a lot of things and the way Americans think from across racial lines. I believe I have a good finger on the pulse of the way people think sometimes. And I'm not seeing that that Americans really are supporting this. I don't think that the tenor that I could tell in the last election, while there was a great support for DJT, I don't think that the appetite of the American people was on that side. I think that there is a more humane or humanitarian side to most Americans. I have to believe that, you know, as part of this country. So I don't know that, I don't think that as many people voted for this as are stated. And I was kind of hoping during the lovers' quarrel that was going on in the last week that we discussed last week, and you know, between Elon and DJT, you know, I was so hoping that it was going to escalate to the point that somebody was going to tell on the other, and one of them will eventually, because neither of them. The thing about a narcissist is this: is if nobody knows about the depths of your narcissism, then it's really no fun, you know. It ain't no fun if the homies can't have. Yeah, no, you know. But if people don't know how dastardly I am, I don't feel so. I don't, as a narcissist, I don't feel complete. I don't feel as though, as if the world really can appreciate my dastardliness. So I think sooner or later they're gonna have to.
We are talking evil villains.
That's exactly what I feel like this guy is, really. Albeit kind of a buffoonery type person, but still. Anyway, I was going off on a tangent. I didn't mean to. I'm trying to control my tangents.
Listen, it's hard. It's hard because some of these things look absolutely crazy, and you know how things have changed. There's some, you know, apparently, guys. Here's my issue before we move back to, you know, California, because you know we got the Marines out, so it's not just the National Guard, and then you know Texas. But here's the thing: they left so much, and when I say they, I mean the last however many administrations. They left so much garbage. Nobody really addressed the debt. You gave him the reasons to be able to come in and do this. And that's the bad part. The means we don't like. But the talking points is that he came in based on talking points other people weren't discussing. Hey, country's going to go bankrupt.
Right.
Now, you know, he won. Listen, I'm about to go off on one of my tangents. But it's just like, how does a President Trump get birthed in this environment? It's because America is not what it has claimed to be.
Right.
Like you said, it's not a Christian nation. It's not a nation that has been about law and order and justice. Look at 400 years of injustice against us. Look at 100 plus years of destroying our our Black communities. Some of you who you may be in touch with me on Brother Deshaun, we did a video. That video has been seen over almost 1 million times now in a week about how they destroyed our Black cities from 1912 onward. Just destroyed them. Eminent domain, flooded them with lakes, redlined against them. We did, banks settling redline lawsuits up until last year, guys. Just Google banks settling lawsuits. This hasn't stopped.
Right.
So, this has never been a country that has ideals, but it hasn't lived up to those ideals. And when you gotta, I don't know. This is just this last 7 minutes is me and Curtis. Listen, because it is. Look, in all fairness, you say it all the time, Curtis. We would not be doing this show. Sometimes it does get depressing because it's a reality that we have to live with, and we look at if these elections are rigged, if Elon did get the data to actually compromise the future elections, what does that mean for us? We can sit up here and we can say that it's a possibility. Me and Curtis have been talking for the last 7-8 months about possibilities that we've seen happen. Like, this is a possibility. This before the election, before he was elected, hey, this is what he's saying he's going to do. These are the possibilities. New people, new divisions, new mercenaries coming in and locking people up on the street, pulling up to their houses, searching their houses. Like, we talked about this 9 months ago. And so it's happening. And so why would we think that some of these things that we're saying are possibilities couldn't happen? It is absolutely a possibility based on the fact that this last election is borderline being, like, it's a serious thing. People are really challenging the legitimacy of the election. So now you let one of the smartest men with a computer bring 20-year-olds in who are brilliant with computers, get all our data. They know who every single one of us is. You're telling me that if they fix the last election, what can they do with all our data now?
Right.
They can't, you know how easy it is to program there's if this, then that. There's something in a computer language, it's called if, then that.
Right.
Like, if somebody does this, the computer does that. So in other words, if a person votes this, computer, you do that.
Right.
That's not hard. so listen, that's my tangent for this. We both got one tangent off. Like,
well, listen, somebody called him Governor Hot Wheels. That's Greg Abbott in Texas. That was an ode to Jasmine Crockett. She got a little hot water for calling him Governor Hot Wheels because, of course, he's in a wheelchair. So that's who Governor Hot Wheels is. But Governor Abbott, I'll give him his name, is of course, deploying 5,000 troops in the state of Texas because there are these so-called No Kings protests going on this weekend. Now, there's a lot going on this weekend. Tomorrow, I think Trump's having his. This goes under ridiculousness as far as I'm concerned. But of course, Trump is having a U.S. Army 250th anniversary parade scheduled for tomorrow in D.C. And it just happens to coincide with Trump's 79th birthday. So he basically wants this to be You've seen the old war pictures of like Mussolini or one of those old dictators marching through the streets with the army, even in China and different places where there are authoritarian governments. You've seen the pictures, or at least in movies, right? Where you got these people marching in the armies, the show of force behind them. That is exactly what DJT is envisioning for the Washington D.C. tomorrow, and they're calling it a celebration for the 250th anniversary parade, but in Trump's mind, it is absolutely a Trump birthday parade. you know this, right? Because clearly this man suffers from narcissism on some level.
Well, Anita Bracy is making a lot of great points that I want to. She's the one who posted about this No Kings rally, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. at the Douglasville, Georgia courthouse tomorrow. So if you are in that area near Georgia, and I'm sure there's going to be No
They're
Kings all over the
They're
country.
going to be all over the country.
Find one that's close to you.
Did you hear Trump threatening the people that were going to be protesting? If there's any protest, there's going to be a heavy response, and stuff that he's always barking. But
well, when we were talking about the Congresswoman LaMonica McIver, it came to my mind for a quick second that God forbid she gets. Like, I think they're trying to bait us out. That's why when I saw a brother over there with the Latinos over in LA, I said, bro, like, you didn't get the memo? Go sit down.
Right.
They can let these other people go out, because at the end of the day, they have enough backing. They have the Trump people who voted for them who are of their same, ethnicity. And then they have, they got enough people. Let them get all those people to come support them before other races come out, especially us, because again, I think there's something different when they see us come out.
Right.
When they see us come out, we are already viewed as the threat. Any black man and woman walking down the street is viewed as a threat. That's just it. We don't that's why a Trayvon Martin, a young man, can be killed by walking and getting some Skittles. Like, we're naturally intimidating because there's a fear of retaliation built into these people. Yeah. They are hoping, God forbid, one day we don't wake up and just obliterate them as a race for everything they've done in the last, 400 years. So that's this natural thing. So when they see us come out, that's what they're looking for. And my worry is they use this, they pick one blatant example. Like, they make a black woman or a man the example where it's just a slap in the face. But the whole purpose is to get us out, because they know if they put this Congresswoman in jail, we're coming out. They know, like, now again, like you said, there's no legitimate charges. I don't see anything sticking.
Right.
But what if, you know what I mean? What if they fabricate? Like, we're not going to just let a black woman go to jail and not wrongfully and not come out. So are they looking for some type of an example?
They want to have an excuse. They want to have an excuse. That's why, listen, I know that they're having this No Kings protest, and I know that there are people that will go out, but be careful, because like you're saying, and I think this is absolutely true, that the reaction when the people have melanation and they are out there protesting, there is a very different response than when unmelanated people are. They treat them a lot more gingerly. They're using rubber bullets. They're using rubber bullets out in LA. I even saw one of the unmelanated news people get shot. It was a woman, and I thought it was kind of weird that they're shooting rubber bullets at these folks just for basically reporting the news. But that's the environment we're in now, where our First Amendment rights are under attack. Any opposition or stated opposition to this administration is met with violence in a lot of cases. It's a real pettiness. Did you see? I think you saw it. Rand Paul, the Kentucky representative, who's been very vocal about not backing the big beautiful bill. And did you see he got disinvited from the White House cookout that apparently is happening this weekend? Because of his vocalness, he did like an 8-minute video talking about how upset he was that his grandchildren weren't going to be able to go to the White House cookout because of the pettiness of this administration. Which, listen, pettiness runs deep in me as well, and I'm okay with that. A pettiness, but it just seems so. I just find it hard to co-sign anything this administration does. But there was a level of pettiness that you have to admire.
You're not invited to the cookout.
You're not invited to the cookout. So literally, we see somebody not invited to the cookout, and it's not us that's doing the inviting. Anyway.
Yeah, his feelings were clearly hurt.
He was butthurt. Yeah, he was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, and then they asked him, how old is your grandson? He's like 1.
Like, he's here.
He's like 1.
Y'all can go to the park and cook out some burgers and dogs, and he'll be just as happy.
He's like, wait, I'm so disappointed that my grandson can't come. Hey, how old is he? 1. No, you're disappointed that you can't come.
I'm like,
your grandson ain't even gonna know what's going on. But yeah, good point. And I mean, a lot of great comments coming from you guys. I want to revisit that other one by Anita, because she was talking about Stephen A. Smith backing this. We'll revisit that in 1 second. We got a couple things to revisit from these comments. These are great. But Get Black With Me said, yeah, all forces for good must come together. That's absolutely what it's going to take. That's absolutely what it's going to take. And again, what does that look like? Because all forces for good against the person who really controls the most powerful military in the world. Mm-hmm. So, this has all the looks of a future civil war coming, because, he's not going to concede. You're not putting him in jail. You're not getting him out of the office. Not without a fight. Right. So and
just think of it. You've got Marines who are trained killers. That's what they're trained for, if you don't know. And they're being deployed against U.S. citizens. What kind of internal turmoil must they be going through? Mm-hmm. What kind of mental turmoil can it be that, these might be cousins or family members and things like that. And yet these people are being used as pawns, really, and dispatched to potentially do violence against their neighbor. And this is a real scary time. It's a real scary time because we've been here before, but none of us were here to see this. So in our lifetime, we thought we had made progress past all this stuff, but within, a few short months, we've seen this administration probably push us back 100 years as far as progress has been concerned, and put us at the brink of probably another civil war at some point. And we see the beginnings of it. And this administration has been very deliberate about making sure that, doing these loyalty tests. I think that's what this is a loyalty test. Yeah. When you dispatch people in their own neighborhoods, potentially to take action against their own neighbors. So anyway.
No, and Spike, good point. Paranoia is common among oppressors. They know all the blowback was evaded. The deployment of the National Guard in Texas, again, 2 states, because we haven't even seen real footage. Has anyone seen real footage from Texas protests?
No, not yet. Well, they got some weather issues going on in parts of Texas too right now.
Tornadoes, they getting hurricanes or something.
They were getting floods and stuff like that. So the people are maybe a little distracted with life and death, right now, as opposed to dealing with the foolishness of the governor.
I want to make sure the house is going to be there this evening.
Listen,
Get Black With Me. He's moving so fast because the lawlessness is unsustainable.
Absolutely. He's just trying to throw as much stuff up there as quickly as he can to see what can what can stick. As you notice, most of the stuff is eventually being overturned by the court system. And it, you know, if it makes it to the Supreme Court, it's we don't know whether they're going to back him completely or not. But so far, the courts have been holding stay here and keeping us safe to some regard at this point. And I found it interesting, and we still got a few more things to get into here. I did find it interesting that the the guy you called the Crypt Keeper, I think at one point, Tom Homan, who's in charge of getting rid of these immigrants. He had warned that officials could be facing arrest over ICE, interference with the ICE raids and things like that. And then a day later, we see Alex Padilla getting arrested. We've seen the judge in Wisconsin that got arrested. We're seeing local officials here in New Jersey that have gotten arrested for kind of wanting to do their jobs and hold on to see what's happening. So we're seeing, they're telling us what they're doing and it's happening. It's not like they're saying these things and it's just hyperbole. They're talking about it and then you're seeing it play out in real life. So I don't think even those supporters of this administration can't be honest with themselves and say that what he says is not true or that he's just talking, because he's proven that he's just crazy enough to try everything that he says. And a lot of it is unfortunately sticking, at least temporarily, and causing all types of chaos. So, but go ahead. You had something you wanted to get into there?
No, I didn't know, Stephen A. Smith regularly plays, you never know what side he's on. He kind of jumps from side to side. That's in everything. Whether it's a sports commentary, he looks like he's, against certain players. And next thing you know, he spoke about, spoke critically against Kyrie Irving, and all of a sudden, hey, I'm not against them. So, he's gone a lot more into this political talk. And, I want to play this clip because it's a short clip. It's a couple seconds. But Anita is saying that, because he just got another huge contract. So, the guy's starting to look like a plant. If he's really going to go and he's really going to go rogue, she said he was critical of Padilla. So I'm just curious as to what. Let's just play a short bit of this and see what see if this is my final reason to write Stephen A. Smith off. Let's go. Hold on. Check this out.
Of someone from the other political party, but I think it's also a really ominous sign of what they're willing to die agents. And it's.
Can Kristi Noem speak? Could you have waited till she finished to ask your questions? To shout your questions? You are a senator, right? You couldn't wait? So that was just you out of control because you were just losing it up. You, a United States senator, couldn't compose yourself and let the head of Homeland Security finish her thought before you asked the question. Couldn't do that, huh?
See, but all right, that's all. That's not cause for arrest.
That's the one point that Stephen A. clearly missed, is that interrupting Kristi Noem is not a criminal offense. I mean, what's the worst thing you do in class? You get sent to the principal's office, maybe. If as a student you interrupt the teacher, maybe. Mm-hmm. But you never get thrown down and cuffed and taken out by federal agents just because you interrupted somebody. And listen, I can't get too upset. Stephen A. Smith is, so what? Who cares what Stephen A. Smith said? Other than Stephen A. and maybe his family, they may care, but there's nothing he's ever said that has made any impact on my life. In full transparency, he's a member of the same fraternity, but I don't even want to go into that.
He's just letting anybody in.
Apparently, if they got the money. But anyway, I don't want to go too far down that road.
Right.
But anyway, clearly,
this guy has a huge audience.
of course, he has a huge audience. They don't give $100 million contracts to somebody who doesn't have a huge audience. But to your point, you know, that $100 million doesn't. That's the problem. That's what's gotten us into this problem that we're in politically today. Is that people think that because Trump has some money, that he's some sort of good businessman, when clearly everything in his record shows that that may not necessarily be true. You know, he just had a lot of money. And if you got a lot of money, you can make a lot of moves. You can do a lot of things and lose a lot of money. And it's okay because you still got a bunch of money left. So if you lose a couple $100 million and you still got several $100 million left, how much do you really miss it? You know, we're talking millions of dollars here. So anyway, I was about to go off on a tangent. I know.
Yeah.
And
it's a good point. It's this concentrated media, this stuff that I'm worried about. Like, again, we look at these optics. It's the same problem right before the election when we had Elon Musk, who has 210 million followers, 200 million followers at the time. You know, President Trump had 70, 80 million followers at the time. Joe Rogan's the most listened to podcast in the world. You know, hundreds of millions of listeners. You know, Tucker Carlson. You know, he's doing streams on X, getting 100 million listeners. This is the concentration of media where you can't compete. That's my only point in looking at somebody like a Stephen A. Smith. Is like you're trying to make sure that everyone who has the big eyes, because if you're bought and paid for, small media, look, MSNBC, you can't. Again, you're trying to compete with viral videos. You're trying to compete with viral clips. We're getting our news from viral clips now, where America used to tune into news programming. This is where you got your news from. So if I got 10 people who are bought and paid for that can collectively talk to 500 million people tonight, we deploy a message tonight. All right, see if CNBC and the independent news and the small broadcasters can, it's a new form of control of the optics, which is what the West has always done. Right. We want to control what people see so that we can have our, it's on our agenda. Now, that's my only thing when it comes to somebody like a Stephen A. Smith, who seems to be, okay, all of a sudden the check comes in and we're going very much right wing now. Like, anyway, that's all I got to say.
Yeah, well, okay.
That's it. Because we don't want to give Stephen A. Smith no more than a couple minutes here. If that. We gave him too much.
That was more than I wanted to give it, frankly. But speaking of viral stars here, I don't know this person, but apparently he's all the rage in TikTok. Full disclosure, I'm not on TikTok. I haven't gotten over the TikTok yet. But Khaby Lame, that's story number 10, I think. Leaves the U.S. after ICE detention. So he's I think he's a British citizen. I don't know who he is and what kind of videos he does. Maybe you can fill in some gaps for me on that front, brother. But he decided rather than deal with ICE, he was going to head back home and not deal with any of this. Khaby Lame. I don't know if that's a real name or not, because it doesn't sound like.
That's what we know him as.
Okay, probably not the name his parents gave him, is what you're saying.
I don't know, but he's the biggest. He's the most followed TikTok star in the world. You guys, who's familiar with Khaby Lame? For those of basically what he is. Do you remember Mr. Bean?
Okay.
You remember Mr. Bean?
Mm-hmm.
What was the gentleman's name? Mr. Bean.
Yeah, I forgot it.
You remember him? He had the HBO show. He never spoke. He would just go into various different things. He would be in various different clips. Never spoke.
Okay.
Same thing with Khaby Lame. Same thing with Khaby Lame. He has built a following on TikTok of I think the last I checked was 157 million. And that's what he's known for. These silent videos where, let's see if I can pull one. Does anybody know this young man? Again, maybe his audience is, a certain small audience, a certain age group, a certain demographic. I'm not sure. Maybe 157 million of followers. Most of them are young. But yes, he's very well known in these videos where he doesn't talk. He just does these kind of reactions, and people love it. People love it. He has all of these specific mannerisms, and so he's kind of wholesome, very wholesome. You know what I'm saying? Wholesome content, family friendly content. Because again, he doesn't talk. It's all these 15, 30, 45-second sketches. And amassed a lot of money, huge fortune, as he became the world's most followed TikToker. But I don't think anybody ever questioned. I don't think many of us knew if he even lived in the United States. But apparently he didn't, and so he decided he was detained by ICE,
right?
And then he decided to what, Curtis, self-deport.
Yeah, he's like, I don't need this in my life. I'm out. I'll go back to my own country. Put me on a plane. So, listen, listen. Leaving this country is getting more and more attractive. A more and more attractive option to me every day. And when we first started talking about leaving the country and stuff like that, I was always the one, I don't know if I'm going anywhere. Now I'm not so sure. I'm really not so sure. There's, I know you brought up, I'll just bring it up now. While I was away a couple weeks ago, you did a poll that you had at the end of the show. If you gave, I think if I'm stating this correctly, if I'm not stating it correctly, please correct me. But I think it was like, for $1 million, would you take $1 million to leave this country permanently? If that was the question, if that wasn't the question, please correct me. But that was basically the question. And, we had a few people that wanted some more details. I'm not so sure now. If somebody offered me $1 million to leave here, I just need to know by when I need to be gone. Because I think I know enough now about the world and I've seen enough of the world to know that there are other places, that this isn't the only game in town, which has always been kind of the way it's been marketed. America, we're so great. And listen, the theory of America is indeed a great one. I really do believe that. The ideas that our founding fathers came up with, I think were great. Were great ideas. But the problem is that we have never seen them fully enacted. We've never seen the will, or the part of the will of the people, to actually be accepted of all men being created equal, men and women in this instance. So, hey, if we can get through, and I know that you've been having some talks and putting out some content and things of that nature, calling for us to get out of here. Save me a reservation, please. Just if it goes through, just keep me on the list. I'm just saying.
DC Old Fly said, as soon as I posed the question again, Curtis, $1 million to each person of your household.
Oh, so that's, wait a second. I got to bring my kids back in the home.
Well, they going to want their own million.
Yeah. Listen,
Dad, you ain't getting rid of my million.
I'll give them their $1 million.
$1 million to each person of your household to leave the USA. Would you leave or stay? Okay. And this is, I'm asking, everybody who's watching, because you know, DCO Fly came as soon as I posed the question, she said, "Yes, I'm ready to leave here too before it self-destructs." And now, to be fair,
Mm-hmm.
I think what we're assuming, guys, is there's going to be no more elections. So if you're viewing this as this storm's going to pass, then you'd be like, why the heck would I leave? You know what I'm saying? Like, let's get Get Black With Me said, hey, let's have, Benita's checking in. Good to see you, Benita, one of our great co-hosts. You know, hey, you got the midterms next month. Next year. But I think that's when we're going to see some serious changes in people's opinions.
Right.
Because I think something's going to happen with those midterms that we're not expecting. I don't know what, but I think something's going to happen with those midterms. I don't think we're going to. I don't think we're going to see this administration lead. They are already operating on a very specific plan that involves them having a king. It's not a plan that involves them having a president. You know, they want Trump 2028. Steve Bannon, their enforcer, is very vocal about it's Trump 2028. So I think as people see Trump 2028, that's when people are going to start to say, oh no, I got to get the heck out of here. Because this is a dictatorship now. We're no longer this is not the America of President Obama, President Biden, or President Trump's first campaign. This is somehow this man came in, got control of the US government, and is in for a third term. He's running. And if he runs, we already know he's going to win because it's set up for him to win. So I think that's when we ask the poll question again. And it'll probably, if it's 2 out of 10 that said they're gonna leave today, Curtis.
Listen,
number
is doubled now.
Yeah. And look, Benita said I'm leaving. The 18 million in my country. Spiking, what country are you in? He said I buy Bitcoin. Yeah, I'm buying gold. I'm putting 950,000 in gold. In big communities, there is always good people too. Amen. Where will you go that the U.S. is not actively terrorizing?
Now, that's the tough part. That's the tough part.
Listen, when these people get hungry enough, they will turn on Trump. It hasn't been 1 year yet. I understand. Listen, we're all watching. Mm-hmm. The reason why we're posing the question is because, you know, I'm not going to go into this, you know, but some people know, if you follow my brother Deshaun channel, you know, and me and Curtis speak about this. We try not to, we want to bring you guys the news and save the, you know, the sacred prophecy for another place. But if you go on my brother Deshaun channel, Get Black With Me, on Instagram and TikTok, you'll see very clearly what the prophetic books say. And that's where we're at. Regardless of whether anyone wants to hear that or not, we would be remiss not to tell you. There's a reason why we are very clear on what's about to happen and why we can tell you this now. And you can say, wow, these guys on Hello Black America said this back in 2024. Mm-hmm. The heck, they said this in 2025. It's happening. It's because we're not the only ones who see it. We are not this is the actual prophecy playing out. Elon and President Trump, very, very written about very extensively. So if we're there, that's the conversations we're having. We're no longer having these low-level conversations about the news. But yes, that's why I say I don't believe he's leaving. And if he's not leaving, what you have to say to yourself is, what am I going to do now? That's why I'm posing the question. And that's why we are putting a proposal before President Trump to send us out. And I believe President Trump is going to pay us to leave. And when you go to our Tesla, go to my brother Deshaun page, you'll see that we put a proposal out. It's a $2.1 trillion proposal. You know, it's been seen probably now over 100,000 times since we posted it 5 days ago. A lot of people are on board with it. It makes wonderful sense. I'm not even talking about from a biblical standpoint. I'm not talking about anything but geopolitics. I'm talking about if you take everything out of it, you take literally everything out of it and just view it for what it is this a good proposal for the U.S., for the descendants of the transatlantic slave trade, for the continent of Africa, for the country of Liberia or Sierra Leone? It's brilliant, and it's not my idea. So I think that's how you view it. And if you view it that way, you'll see that we have options, and we are putting forth a deal before President Trump to actually have him make this deal to send us out of here with $1 million each. And it's a small amount because it's what's in it for him. It's not just what's in it for us. When you guys see what's in it for him, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, this is a deal that if he's a deal maker, this is a deal he shouldn't sleep on. And that's what hundreds of thousands of people are seeing. And hundreds of people came on saying, yeah, this President Trump, this is a great deal. It's a great deal. You get us out the country, you get the people out the country who don't want to be here. You free up all types of resources. You free up all types of long-term costs that you would have to pay to people, all of this stuff. So again, we feel our job is not to just report the news to you, but it's also to, like, we're having these global conversations. And, you know, we don't want you to think that you're left with no options. And, but yeah, you could take your million and go elsewhere. You want to go live in Bali in Thailand? There's people doing that. I see these videos every other day, Curtis. Somebody's like, hey, check out my $400 apartment here in this country. And it's got a waterfall in it. I'm like, wait, how much? You know, like, what do I used to work with a lot of Italians when I was in the car business. They'd be, what am I, an idiot? You know, like, I'm paying all this money. He's like, yeah, let me show you my 3-bedroom apartment with, it's all modern. How much is it? 600 US. So you want to take your $1 million and go live elsewhere? Whole point is, I think it's going to get very uncomfortable here for us very shortly. And
would you ever think it could be more uncomfortable than it has been for the last 400 years or so? I mean, listen, and it's getting worse, and it's getting worse. One of our co-hosts here, Christy Robinson, checks in with all the trauma. Personally, I have seen happen to my family just being Black in America. I would take the offer instantly if it would give my children the gift of some semblance of peace. And I think that that's something that that resonates with a lot of American foundational Blacks here in America. We've been traumatized for hundreds of years here. And the sad thing about it, of course, is that most of us, even the majority of us, despite that trauma, given $1 million, I don't think the majority of us are still going to leave. I mean, I think the percentage has increased a lot in the last 3 months than when we've discussed this in the past. But I still don't think that that's moved it from a minority portion to the majority. I don't think the majority, even if tomorrow Trump said, I got $1 million for every Black person who can prove their historic ties here in America, and we got $1 million for every person, I still don't think that the majority of the Blacks in America would take them, because we've been so brainwashed, if you will. You know, what was it, the Patty Hearst thing, where you get that Stockholm syndrome is the thing, you know, where we've been here for so long and under the thumb of oppression for so long, but yet we don't know anything else, and a lot of people are frightened about changing or going somewhere else because we've been fed these narrative about what these African countries look like, or these S-hole countries, as 47 called these places in the Caribbean, which they love to go vacationing to these places, but yet, you know, they're still S-hole countries. Anyway, let's talk about love for a moment. We like to talk about love. And little kiss because Elon and DJT apparently, they had a rough couple weeks here between them, and I'm just happy to report that the love affair is seemingly back on. They made up. They apologized for some of the mean things that they've said to each other, and had a little kiss moment. So,
and that sounds like a kiss in a certain place. Doesn't even sound like.
I'm sure that place has been kissed many times before, but yeah. So just a little light moment here, where we focus on love, because that's truly what we're all about here. So Elon and Trump are apparently reconnecting. They're kind of trying to repair the damage that was done when they were arguing back and forth in the public feud that they had with each other. They didn't think it served. So they've kissed and made up, apparently, for now. So we'll have to wait for them to tell on each other. But it's going to happen. It will happen. I promise you. They will tell on each other soon. But for now, the love affair has been restored. Thank goodness for that. Let's give a big cheer for love.
Did anybody think this was staged? We posed this question. It seemed very odd. It seems like Elon has something on President Trump.
You think?
Because I've never seen President Trump react so softly to criticism, to a direct. Think about it. Everything he does, if you criticize him, you're on his. He has a list.
Absolutely.
He has a list. He adds to it. He doesn't forget who's on his list. Years later, he's still mad at President Obama for roasting him at that dinner that day.
White House dinner. Yes.
Yeah, he has not lived that down.
He hasn't gotten out of that yet. You're right.
He was not laughing.
Not even a smile.
President Trump had the whole room laughing at him. And so, but to get called, hey, he's on the Epstein files. The bill is ridiculous. Anybody who votes for it is crazy. Like, these are, like, President Trump, you wouldn't have won without me. And, hey, I'm disappointed in Elon. Like, anyone else.
That's true.
It would have been all out war. Oh, really?
Yeah. You're absolutely right. You are absolutely right about that.
So this has all the makings of, what do you either have on President Trump or you both have on each other that He
didn't even get uninvited from the White House cookout that we know of, as Rand Paul did. So you're right. Absolutely. There's going to be some consequences and repercussions anytime you come for Trump. You know that. And the fact that there were no consequences nor repercussions between Elon and Trump shows me how truly aligned and in love they truly are.
Yep.
Anyway.
And again, see, and I think this is where I want. Well, we got a legend. Let's before I even go, because I was getting ready to. I want to circle back around with a couple things. And thank you, Christy. Good to see you, Christy Robinson, Spiker Hahn, like Anita, DCO Fly, like just we are every Friday 12 noon. We cannot do this show without you guys. Like, you guys make the show. Get Black with me. Y'all make the show. And so we appreciate it. I want to circle back around with a couple things. But before I go there, we had a legend pass. And I want, just like I was not familiar with, you were not quite familiar with Khaby Lame. I want to give you the floor to kind of, pay due respect to this legend, Curtis, and just in case maybe those who are in the audience don't know. So
yeah, if you missed it this week, musical legend, musical icon, Sly Stone died this week at the age of 82. Musical legend, late 60s, early 70s, revolutionary guy. Had kind of a really short period, maybe about 4 or 5 years, where he just dominated the charts. And what was unique about, and this is ironic in this time, is that he had a group that was multicultural. They did music that was not necessarily seen as Black music, quote unquote. They really just kind of were revolutionary in their time, singing about peace and unity and bringing people together. Lots of later on, they were very instrumental in like leading the funk revolution, if you will, that came later with people like George Clinton and others who moved forward the funk movement, Larry Graham and those sorts of people. He was just kind of a leader of that revolution. And Sly Stone, unfortunately, passed away this week at the age of 82. So it's, I wasn't a huge fan of his music, at that time, but I came to appreciate it later in life. And, a lot of, I think, like rappers and stuff like that, some of them would sample his music and things like that. So just we want to pay homage to the people in our community who kind of trailblazed for us, led the way. So our condolences to Sly Stone, of Sly and the Family Stone. And he just had some battles that he succumbed to this week. So just wanted to make that point. America needs, despite the fact that we're railing against diversity, equity, and inclusion, it are people like Sly Stone that kind of brought all of those different elements together, things that didn't necessarily typically fit together, and put all those together to make something beautiful. I'd love to see us come together now and make something beautiful out of this mess that we find ourselves in at this point. So R.I.P. Sly Stone. Just wanted to pay homage to one of our legends who passed away this week.
You just said something that I just want to just chime in. Last night, me and my family, we're in the backyard. We listened to Whitney Houston first. Mm-hmm. And when I say, we listened to what was the song that set it off? It wasn't Greatest Love of All, because that was the second song. It might have been I Run to You. Very, very high. When I say high, I don't want to use the term frequency, but it's angelic. And so we're listening to Whitney, and we're like, Whitney was one of our angels. She was given to the world, and sometimes the world is so harsh, you really don't know how to deal with it when you're like, you're singing in this way. And we're like, well, what can we play next? It's only Michael and Whitney. We said, well, let's play Michael. So we start playing Michael now, and we start with Man in the Mirror. Mm. And so we play Man in the Mirror, and we're blasting it. Like everyone in the neighborhood can hear it. You get what I mean? Then we play Heal the World. Mm. And so when you were just talking about Sly Stone and how, a lot of our legends use music to kind of to unite. I said to myself last night, I wonder how many people are actually playing Michael right now, are actually playing Man in the Mirror right now, because it was a very like, hey, you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself, make a change. You know what I'm saying? This was, it's just the things that worked for us, we've gotten away from. Everything doesn't work, but, they don't allow these musicians anymore. These musicians probably played a huge role, bigger than we understand, in keeping the peace for 50, 60, 70 years when all things were breaking loose. You know, when you got Michael and Whitney and certain musicians that are singing certain songs, and nothing brought white and black people together like music. You know, even white people who were coming out of their towns and coming to our towns back then, they were like, listen, hey, I know what y'all telling us about them, but hey, when you come over and hang out with them, it's a different vibe. So, I just thought, concerning some of these legends that have they've gone way beyond a genre. It's hard to classify them. So again, I don't know Sly Stone, but the way you spoke about him, it seemed like he probably had people of every race listening to his music.
Absolutely. And you know what? And taking that one step further is that even in the 60s and stuff, like people like Aretha Franklin and Mahalia Jackson, things like that, they actually, Harry Belafonte, these were entertainers that used their platforms to actually physically, in some cases, fund the civil rights movement. So they use their platforms to they put their money where their mouth was, literally, and actually support it. So it wasn't just the music; it was using that as an economic push, if you will, to move the movements that they supported further. So yeah. Anyway,
all right, before you wrap us up, because we've reached the 2:00 hour.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to say one thing, and this is where I'm going to end. When it comes to the things that you guys are going to see happen, some of you know me as Brother Deshaun. I don't want to, I'm not hiding any side of me. I'm trying to control it when I'm here. And Curtis knows that.
Absolutely.
From the time I met Curtis, the things that we linked on was what was the scripture and what we saw and that's coming. If you don't read the scripture, you don't get to have an opinion on it that's valid. Be no different than me having an opinion on a book that I have not read, thoroughly dissected, talked about, heard about it, but I have not read it. A lot in the air about it. Everyone talking about it. You read it? Nah, I haven't read it. Okay, you don't get to have a valid opinion. The things that are happening right now, all written, and the scripture proves itself with prophecy. I'm only going to end on this because in the last week, God has been doing something on the Brother Deshaun channel, and probably some of you may have come from that channel, some from Instagram and TikTok, and you may be watching this either live or you'll watch a replay. I don't want you guys to think that I'm two different people. I'm the same person, but when we come here, we have to report the news. And we try to keep it very much news focused. But I would be remiss to not share with you that everything, the falling away of believing in the scriptures, that's prophetic.
Right.
First generation, we don't believe the scriptures. That's prophetic. That's a clue that the scripture says. We came up all through it, all through slavery, all through. All right. Something about those scriptures that we knew were for us. Only the people who didn't know the scriptures told you the scriptures were to keep you down. The scriptures are to liberate.
Right.
So the lie was the scriptures are used to keep you down. You let one verse in the entire scripture, obey your masters, let you think that entire book was about enslaving people. It wasn't. It's the book of liberation. But it's also set in East Africa. You open it up, you see 4 rivers in the first couple chapters. Hey, these rivers are in East Africa. That's a clue. That means the people who are starting in that book, originating from that book, East Africa, which science has proven mitochondria Eve Y chromosome Adam, first people ever in creation, came from East Africa. So science proves what the scriptures open up at. Then they expand out into Kush, Ethiopia, Egypt, go over to the what used to be Northeast Africa, which is now the Middle East, classified in the last 150 years. It's not a book of white people. They come later. They come later. Romans, Greeks, later, way later. So when I tell you guys, I have to be able to, when this hits the fan, and you say, how was Brother Deshaun so confident that President Trump wasn't leaving? Because the scripture says he's not leaving. Scripture says, Revelation chapter, there's a whole chapter in Revelations, an entire chapter, it's about President Trump and Elon Musk. The entire chapter. Beast of the sea, beast of the earth. Read it for yourself. One guy calls fire out of heaven, invents a chip, it goes in people's heads, they create a currency. You can't do anything unless you use their currency. It's digital. So whether you believe it or not, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't change the fact it's going to happen. And the reason why I'm telling you this now, so when it happens, you can look back and say, wow, that brother told us it was going to happen. Not because I'm some wise guy, because the scriptures reveal it. So if you read it, you'll understand that it's all playing out according to what was written. And there's not going to be any surprises for us. The surprises might be for you, but it's not going to be for us. And so our prayer for all of you is that you will find that truth so that you can have an anchor, because things is about to go way crazier. And when things go way crazier, you're going to want an anchor. You may not need it now. You can anchor yourself in philosophy. You can anchor yourself in optimism. You can anchor yourself in a couple things. But when things happen that the scripture says is about to happen, it's going to be everyone blown. Because when the scariest part is going to be when you see he's not leaving and you got a real decision to make now. Shoot, I saw him getting out. I saw the general election. I saw the midterms. I saw 2028, a different candidate. He's still here, and he's gained much more power worldwide and in our country. Now you have a real decision to make, and that's when we can actually have different conversations. And so that's where I want to end.
Well, I certainly appreciate that, and I will say that truth doesn't require your belief in order to still be true. So keep that in mind. And pray. We always have invited you to pray and ask for guidance, never to just take what we say at face value. Want to certainly take this time to wish all of our listeners, our co-hosts, happy Juneteenth. That'll be coming up this coming up week. Also, this weekend we celebrate our Father's Day. So if you know of men in your life who are real fathers, I invite you to celebrate them. I do not want to see any of those single mother posts on social media talking about that they deserve Father's Day. This is a day for fathers. I'm sorry, I just had to put that in. Nothing more.
Just a little annoying. Because single moms are celebrated.
Listen, I celebrate single moms, but there are single dads as well.
Amen.
And so happy Father's Day to those who are being good fathers. And I know I only surround myself with men who carry themselves as good fathers. I personally cannot name, I don't think, one person in my circle who isn't a good father. So I want to really make sure that we celebrate those who hold up the mantle of fatherhood. Thank you for joining us this week in Black America. We appreciate your patience with us, even when we go over and get maybe a little off tangent. Sometimes it happens, but we hopefully find our way back sooner or later, and hopefully you'll find your way back here to join us each and every Friday. We come together here on Fridays at noon for This Week in Black America, and we'll be back next week Hopefully you'll join us here as well. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week. We'll see you next Friday at noon on This Week in Black America.
Take care, guys.